Could you ever imagine living in a time where there were no jobs, no money, no food, no shelter, and no Medicare? Well, this time era actually existed for one individual named Marie Rutter. This time era was called the Great Depression. The Great Depression started on October 29, 1929. This day was known as Black Tuesday. This was the day when the stock market crashed. On Black Tuesday, the market lost $14 billion, making the loss for that week an outstanding $30 billion. Once the stock market crashed, fearful that banks would fail, millions of Americans began to withdraw their money. Virtually overnight, they put thousands of banks in peril. By 1932, 40% of the banks in the U.S. had failed. In 1932, the government announced a temporary halt by banks of home foreclosures. More than 11,000 of the nation's 25,000 banks had closed. Between 1929 and 1932, the average income of the average American family dropped 40%, from $2,300 to $1,500 per year. Farmers who had lost their land and homes to foreclosures as a result of the Dust Bowl made up a large part of the auto workforce. These were called Hoovervilles. This is a picture of it. These were shanty towns sprung up all across America in areas which people gathered and constructed makeshift homes out of boxes, packed in crates, abandoned cars, and scrapped wood. During the Depression of the 1930s, the average wage of manufacturer was $17 per week. For a doctor, the average was $61 per week. By the end of 1930, some 3 million children were forced to quit school. At least 200,000 of them took to the roads on their own. One of those kids was Marie Rutter. Marie Rutter is my grandmother. She was born in 1916. She is currently 94 years of age. While sitting down with her, she explained how the Great Depression affected her in so many ways. She was only allowed to complete school through 8th grade, as she was forced to quit school because her family needed her back at the farm. She remembered these times when she did go to school during the Depression because she had to wash her one dress that she had to wear every day. This dress was made out of fertilizer bags. She said that was the only thing that my family could afford at the time. Her family also were tobacco farmers and eventually declared bankruptcy in the mid-1930s. Her family was so poor, many of the necessities they needed were rationed out to her family, such as sugar, flour, and clothes. The only food they had was food that came out of their garden. She says she spent many days picking peas out of the garden so they could store them for the winter because that was the only thing to eat sometimes. In the wintertime, she said they had to sleep 3 to a bed to keep warm. They couldn't afford many blankets, so with 7 children, they had to share a lot. When Christmas came around, she would only get some walnuts and an apple, and maybe an orange if she was lucky enough. The last thing she remembered is not having any Medicare. If someone in her family got hurt, her mom or dad had to treat themselves with their own remedies. There was only one doctor in the area, and he traveled by horse and buggy. It had to be serious for him to come. They couldn't even afford him anyways. She said they were lucky nothing serious happened to them. One of the comments that stood out the most with me was when she said, "That was just our family, what we were going through." Imagine that going on around the U.S., but probably worse. I mean, people were killing themselves and husbands were running away from their families. It was a very scary time. So with that being said, it is very obvious that the Depression caused devastation to not only Marie Rutter, but affected many people across the U.S. It is proven that it is the worst economic crisis ever happened in the history of the U.S. Thank you.